Hey BookTube, time for a weekly wrap-up.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks. And so I thought I would wrap up the past 2 weeks since I didn't do one last week because of excuses and reasons. So I'm going to start out with the print books to the ebooks to the audiobooks since I always talk about audiobooks. So let's begin with a book off my unread books shelf, which I have to say I'm doing pretty good, one book at a time, getting through. Magnolia. This is by Christy Cook and it is YA contemporary. It is set in Magnolia Branch, Mississippi, where Ryder and Gemma live, and they're in high school and their families have been friends since the Civil War. So their two mothers want them to get together and have been planning their wedding and all kinds of things ever since they were born. They, on the other hand, can't stand each other. So the book is all about a big storm that happens that throws them together. The story becomes, how they get along, how they learn to get along. It's kind of a sweet story. I didn't like Gemma very much. I thought she was kind of bossy and not very accommodating of Ryder, who is, of course, everybody's book boyfriend, perfect on every level. In the end, it's a cute story, but it's really more for the teenage crowd. So I gave it 3 stars. On my iPad, I picked up 3 Wishes. This is by Kristen Ashley, and it's not available on audio. And it's all about a family and a genie. And over generations, like 3 generations, this family has never used all 3 of their wishes. So the main character is Lily, who is actually a wish. Her mother wished for her. And so she wishes for the ultimate book boyfriend. She describes all these characteristics to the genie, who has become kind of a family member over the years. She meets Nathaniel, who of course is the wish, on the streets of London. I liked Lily, but I thought that there was a bit of a dichotomy going on with her character because she's written as a very fierce, independent woman, and yet she's kind of a pushover. Kristen Ashley also writes men who are alpha males, who are overbearing to the point of scary. And I have to say that Kristen Ashley can tell a good story, but her writing leaves a lot to be desired. She just doesn't do it very well mechanically, and so it makes it a little bit hard to read. In the end, I thought it was very cute and I gave it 3 stars. Several of you told me that I should read a book by Mariana Zapata called Kulti. So I listened to that on audio and I'll get to that in a minute. But I also picked up another book of hers called The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. This I had to read as an ebook because it's not available on audio. This is all about professional football, and the main character is Vanessa Mazer, and she works for Aiden Graves, who is a defensive end for the Dallas 300s. He's never nice to people. He has no sensitivity, no social skills at all. Vanessa works for him and has for the past 2 years as kind of a gopher, housekeeper, cook, whatever he needs, she goes and does. But she's had it with him because he never says thank you, and she says, I'm done, I'm out of here. After about a month, he decides to go to her apartment and ask her to come back. So he does, and then the story goes from there and becomes the story of their relationship. I liked these characters a lot, and this book really gave me a sense of Zapata's writing, which is very much of a slow burn romance. She is an adult romance writer and she writes romance. This is all about the falling in love. She really doesn't culminate the romance until really late in the book. I really appreciate that because this isn't the quick insta-love, jump into bed kind of thing. And I am all about the falling in love, so this was perfect for me. I really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to going on and reading more of Zapata's books, and I gave this one 4 stars. Like I said, many of you recommended that I read Kulti, also by Mariana Zapata, and this I found on audio, narrated by Callie Dalton. Callie Dalton is a great voice actor, and she was really able to convey the emotion associated with the characters in this story. And there was a lot of range she had to deal with. What I thought was not up to par quite as much as I would have liked was her accent for one of the characters. He's German and she kind of sort of did it and sort of didn't. So, you know, it was passable, but it wasn't a distraction. So it didn't keep me from enjoying the book thoroughly. And I did. This is all about women's professional soccer in the U.S. Sal Casillas is the main character, and she is an up-and-coming, very good soccer player. As a child, she idolized this soccer player named Kulti. Kulti, who has retired, turns out he has come to be one of the assistant coaches for her team. So it's very awkward at first because all of the players all know who he is, his international celebrity status, and it takes a little while for them to get to know him. He reaches out to Saul, kind of, and they start a very rocky friendship, which then develops into a very sweet friendship, which then develops into a romantic relationship. Again, I really loved the way that Zapata took her time to develop this romance. And this particular book, while she did that, it afforded her the opportunity to really explore the world of professional soccer. I think this book kind of turned me on to sports romance. I kind of liked it for a while, but I really loved it here. And so I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I highly recommend it. I picked up The Gifting by K.E. Ganshert, and on audio, this is narrated by Heather Masters. While I am not sure that Heather Masters is very experienced as a narrator, on the scale of a narrator versus voice actor, I think she falls much more on the side of narrator. I ended up DNFing this book, even though I did give it 3 stars, because it was a situation where I just didn't agree with the book. It was not the book for me, but it's a good book. It's all about a girl living in a dystopian world where she sees angels and demons. And you're not allowed to do that. You're thought of as crazy, and crazy people are not contributing to society, and so they need to be gotten rid of. I had 2 major problems with this book. The first was simply this. She talks about people turning into angels. Okay, no. For me, these are 2 created beings. Angels are one kind of created being, and humans are another created being. And so one does not turn into the other when one dies. I just don't believe that. And so when I ran up against that in this book, I just thought, okay, that bugs me. The other thing was that she really tried to address the issue of abortion. And she did it with a real kind of a broad look at, you know, the value of life. And I'm not sure that she accomplished it. And the reason I say that is because I immediately knew what she was talking about. And so, I don't know. You know, maybe for a younger audience, like way younger, like 12 to 15, this might be a good book. And so I DNF'd it, but I gave it 3 stars because I think it's worth a read for the right audience. Last year, I read the first book in Jasinda Wilder's Falling series, and so I decided to pick up book 2, which is called Falling Into Us. It's narrated from 2 points of view by Piper Goodeve and Gabriel Vaughan. I liked this narration a lot. I think they did a good job with conveying the emotions and kind of bringing the characters to life. There were a couple of accents that came into play with one of the main characters' parents. Her dad was Italian and her mother was Lebanese. So, you know, when they spoke, which wasn't very often, but those were well done. I thought it was, you know, well narrated. The 2 main characters in this story are Becca and Jason, and while this, I think, is classified as new adult romance, I really think it's more YA romance. And I say that because the 2 characters are in high school, and while there are some more mature themes addressed here, most of what happens is high school stuff. A couple of things I noticed about this book. First was that it's a great book for teenagers when it comes to talking about the physical relationship between a boyfriend and a girlfriend. This really did that well, and it is a shining example of how it should be done. I'm not sure how realistic it was, but I don't care, because if teenagers are reading this and thinking that this is how it works, then that's a good thing. The other thing I noticed was all the conflict in this relationship is external. There's not one big thing that separates the 2 protagonists. it's all bad stuff coming in from the outside and affecting them. So I'm not sure I like books like that, but it worked. I think this book can function as a standalone, but the events in it happen in the first book. So you don't really need to know that, but it helps if you do. This was a good story, and I gave it 3 stars. I really enjoyed The Forbidden Wish by Jessica Khoury. This on audio is narrated by Cassandra Campbell. Cassandra Campbell is a very seasoned voice actor, and so that right there should tell you that this narration was really good. She handled accents really well. I thought she did them expertly. I was really, really impressed with the narration here. The book is essentially a retelling of the Aladdin legend, fairy tale, you know, whatever. It borrows some elements from things like the Disney movies, and, you know, some of those elements were recognizable if you're familiar with the story. But this is its own story. One of the things that I noticed about this book was the diversity in it. And by that I mean, you have a genie, and the genie's a girl. She's thousands of years old. And in this world, you can start out as human and be turned into a genie. When she was turned, you really get the sense that she was Polynesian. She was on an island with a volcano, and then when her physical features are described, they are very Polynesian sounding. The whole story was just delightful. I really liked the romance. I loved the culmination that happens when the plot just reaches its peak. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. And lastly, I finished the Winners Trilogy by Marie Rutkoski. This is a 3-book trilogy consisting of The Winner's Curse, The Winner's Crime, and The Winner's Kiss. I had read The Winner's Curse about a year and a half ago and absolutely loved it. Then I was ready to read The Winner's Crime when it came out, but then I heard that it ended on a massive cliffhanger, which it does. So I thought, I'm going to wait until the last book comes out and before I read it. So I reread the first book and then read the second book and the third book. These 3 books are all narrated on audio by Justine Eyre. Justine Eyre is a very well-known narrator. She's got book after book after book that she's done. She knows what she's doing, and she is a wonderful voice actor. I have never been really a fan of Justine Eyre, and that's because with her voice, you get a little bit of a whine. She draws out the ends of her words so that it sounds like a whine. And that's not pleasing to my ear. It may not bother you, but it bugged me a lot. But the thing that saved it for me on audio was simply that I sped her up. Speeding it up clipped the ends of the words off so that it eliminated the whine. So I really enjoyed her narration, and I think she did some amazing things in this book with accents. This series really deserves its own review, so I will do that later, but the couple of things I want to tell you about it are that this is fantasy for those of us who would love to read high fantasy, but for whom high fantasy is way too detailed and way too cumbersome. It gets overwhelming, all the world building and the detail. There's no magic system in this world, and it gets built very gradually, and it is very accessible to people like me. Beyond that, Rutkoski's writing is just beautiful. I gave the whole series 5 stars. So suffice it to say, I loved it, I highly recommend it, and I hope that you read it. And I'd love to know your thoughts if you have read this or any of the other books that I read last week. So let me know, let's talk about it in comments, and that is it for now from me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.